What's up, everybody? Today's video is what on earth is going on at Malaga. My name is Greg, an American living abroad in Spain, learning the beautiful game of football one reaction video at a time with your help. And this is by HITC7s. Everybody loves this channel, and I definitely know why. They are great. So I'll include a link in the description so you can go and show them some love. Now, I actually live in Malaga. And I haven't chosen a team yet. So I have given some consideration to choosing Málaga FC. And someone actually recommended this, knowing that I do live in Malaga. So I know some people are being like, why haven't you chosen a team yet? I mean, I'm not, this is not a joke. Like my first video on this channel was when I really started getting into football. So it's really only been like 2 to 3 weeks. It hasn't been a long time. So I'm just trying to keep, researching and seeing which team speaks to me. And I just haven't, I guess I don't know enough yet or haven't found that yet or whatever. But so I'm kind of curious to see what this is about, because I live pretty close to the stadium. I see a lot of people coming from there or going to the matches. So I want to know what's going on. I didn't know Malaga was having some problems. So let me just get this all set up so it looks all pretty for you. Okay, here we go. This should be interesting.
Having your club taken over by the member of a dictatorial ruling royal family within a human rights abusing state, or just being bought outright by the human rights abusing state itself, is a real catch-22 situation. On the one hand, there is all of the death, misery, destruction, and authoritarianism that your club is now indelibly tied to. But on the other hand, ooh, shiny new signings. Me likey shiny new signings.
I see what he's saying. He's saying that almost like you sell your soul to the devil. It's like you have all these bad things going on, but at least we got some shiny signs and everything. So I thought that was funny. Well done. HITC7s. I don't know how you say it. Well done. That was funny.
They're making me forget about bad men who kill people. Maybe now we can compete with all good team full of shiny signings who are owned by oligarchs and tyrants. It is a dilemma that fans of PSG, Manchester City, and others are having to grapple with at this moment in time.
Oh, is that true? PSG, Manchester City? I mean, I know he wouldn't say it if it wasn't, but I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are. Dang, that's interesting. Let's see.
Of PSG, Manchester City, and others are having to grapple with at this moment in time. In addition to the latest and perhaps the most notable case at Newcastle United. But there is one team, Malaga, who appear to have got the worst.
Newcastle United, are they called that because they were purchased by Newcastle? Is that what's happening here?
Newcastle United. But there is one team, Malaga, who appear to have got the worst of both worlds. Really? All the baggage that comes with being owned by a Qatari royal without any of the shiny new signings, trophies, and consequent moral ambiguities. Blessed is the Malaga fan who can call out the ills of the Qatari state without feeling remotely conflicted. PSG supporters enjoy no such luxury. Less than a decade ago, Malaga finished 4th in the La Liga table above Atletico Madrid and reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League.
Wait, I want to see that. Oh, wow. Oh, damn. They were like, oh, wow. So they had as many, they had 58 points. So not close to Real Madrid or Barcelona, but right outside of the qualification for the Champions League group. Wow. Okay.
Finished 4th in the La Liga table above Atletico Madrid and reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League, where they beat the likes of Porto and AC Milan before a narrow and highly controversial defeat to Borussia Dortmund. Across the 2 seasons in which Malaga made those accomplishments, they employed the likes of Ruud van Nistelrooy, Santi Cazorla, Martin Di Michelis, Nacho Monreal, Julio Baptista, Joaquin, Willy Caballero, Solomon Rondon, Jeremy Toulalan, Roque Santa Cruz, and a Golden Boy Award winner in the form of Isco. all marshalled expertly by the former Real Madrid and future Premier League winning manager, Manuel Pellegrini. Now they find themselves in the bottom half of the Segunda Division table.
Oh, damn. They're way down there.
Having finished bottom of La Liga in the 2017-18 season. A dark cloud lingers over the club in terms of their finances, despite the fact that they are still said to be owned by one of the wealthiest, but also one of the most mysterious characters.
That's interesting. So he said they are said to be owned. So do you not know the owners of the clubs? Or I don't know. In America, I mean, you know all the owners. So that's why I'm asking why he said that. Said to be owned. That means like maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
By one of the wealthiest, but also one of the most mysterious characters in all of world football.
What?
So, just what on earth, you could be forgiven for asking, is going on at Malaga? Did they just happen to get the one-skinned Arab royal? Is he just an idiot, incapable of running a football club, regardless of his resources? Maybe he isn't a real member of the ruling royal family at all. Or perhaps it is something else entirely. Well, that is the question that I'm going to attempt to answer in this video, and those are just some of the questions that have been put to me in the many requests that I've had to make a video taking a look at Malaga. So sit back, relax, and join me on a journey to the ancient city of Malaga, a port city at the heart of Andalusia, which is famous for its golden beaches and imperial past.
Andalusia.
Heart of Andalusia, which is famous for its golden beaches and imperial past, but not so much for its football club, as we hone in on that football club, their absent owner, and where it all went wrong for a club who, less than 10 years ago, were being tipped as Real Madrid and Barcelona's biggest challengers. The city of Malaga is perhaps best known as the birthplace of Pablo Picasso. The Spaniard is synonymous with masterpieces like Guernica and the Ladies of Avignon, which made him one of the most celebrated artists of all time, unlike most great artists, during his own lifetime. In the summer of 2010, Sheikh Abdullah Al Thani came to Picasso's birthplace with the stated ambition of creating a masterpiece all of his own. But whilst the genius of Picasso, at least in terms of his pioneering work within the field of cubism, was in bringing broken and fragmented parts together to create something beautiful or powerful, Sheikh Abdullah has so far succeeded only in assembling something that was briefly quite good before abandoning it and leaving it to fall into a state of disrepair. It has been less Pablo Picasso and more my 3-year-old nephew drawing on his chalkboard before getting bored, scribbling all over it, and going off to play with his other toys. Sheikh Abdullah arrived in Andalusia during what was a difficult time for Malaga.
Wait, why do they keep showing him when they talk about Sheikh Abdullah? Is that Sheikh Abdullah? I mean, I don't think so, but...
Sheikh Abdullah arrived in Andalusia during what was a difficult time for Malaga. Following an impressive extended stay in La Liga in the early to mid-2000s, the highlight of which was undoubtedly a historic 5-1 win against Barcelona, Malaga fell on hard times during the second half of the decade. Immediately after recording their third 10th place finish in La Liga.
Wow. Oh, damn, they got relegated.
In the space of only 4 seasons, Malaga finished bottom of the league with a pathetic 24 points in the 2005-06 season. Although the club bounced back at only their second attempt, Los Albicelestes remained firmly in the throes of a financial crisis. At this time, Malaga was owned by Lorenzo Sanz, a failed footballer who made his fortune in the real estate and construction industries. Sanz spent 10 years as a director at Real Madrid and 5 years as Real Madrid president before buying Malaga in 2006, the same year in which his son, Fernando Sanz, played the last of his more than 200 games for the club. Lorenzo entrusted his son Fernando as Malaga's club president, though his most important role as president would actually be trying to find an investor willing to purchase Malaga from his dad. In the summer of 2010, Sanz travelled to Qatar in search of potential buyers, where he held talks.
Well, that's where he went wrong. At least I think so.
Sands travelled to Qatar in search of potential buyers, where he held talks with Sheikh Abdullah Al Thani, a member of Qatar's ruling House of Thani. Sheikh Abdullah acquired Málaga for a reported fee of €25 million, though it has since been claimed that the actual figure was close to twice that amount.
That doesn't seem like a lot. 25 million? Is that a lot for a club? It doesn't seem like it.
There was excitement when Sheikh Abdullah first arrived on the Costa del Sol, following a season in which Málaga had only secured their La Liga survival on the final day of the season. But that excitement subsided a little during his first summer at the helm. Malaga's takeover was the first major takeover of a Spanish team by someone from the Middle East, but it occurred at a time of mass investment in football coming out of the Gulf. It came 2 years after Sheikh Mansour's takeover at Manchester City, but 1 year before Qatar's Emir and dictator-in-chief, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, acquired PSG. Or, if you want to be technical and particularly pedantic, a year before Qatar's sovereign wealth fund acquired PSG on the Emir's instructions. Right. Solomon Rondon was the most notable signing of Abdullah's first summer in charge, but his biggest statement of intent was actually the mid-season appointment of Manuel Pellegrini in November 2010. Pellegrini had won 96 points at Real Madrid the previous season, but even that wasn't enough to finish above Pep Guardiola's generational Barcelona team, which cost the Argentine his job. Following Malaga's poor start to the season, Pellegrini, presumably, made his arrival conditional upon the promise of some investment, and that is exactly what he got. The likes of Martin Di Michaelis, Willy Caballero, and Julio Baptista were brought in mid-season as Málaga got themselves out of trouble and secured
Where are they at? Number 11. Okay.
A respectable 11th place finish. The following summer, Málaga had by far the most ambitious transfer window in the entire history of the club, splashing out over £50 million on the likes of Isco, Joaquin, and Santi Cazorla. Meanwhile, Ruud van Nistelrooy was reunited with Manuel Pellegrini on a free transfer. Given that Málaga had a higher net spend than either Real Madrid or Barcelona that summer, expectations were high, but Pellegrini did not disappoint. 2 years on from securing La Liga survival on the final day of the season, in the 2011-12 season, Málaga secured Champions League qualification on the final day of the season for the first time in the history of the club. Pellegrini's men finished 2 points ahead of Atletico Madrid in only Abdullah's second season in the Costa del Sol. Excitement was aplenty, and it was understandable. People were starting to ask whether Málaga could be the club to challenge Spanish football's duopoly, and whether, as it had been at Manchester City, Champions League qualification was just the first step in their journey to the top. But over the summer, there was a mass exodus out of Málaga. Santi Cazorla and Nacho Monreal joined Arsenal, Salomon Rondon signed for Ruben Kazan, and Ruud van Nistelrooy retired.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess it's pretty common. When a team has success, the players try and take advantage of that success and make some money. So maybe that's what happened. Dang, that sucks though.
Mass exodus out of Málaga. Santi Cazorla and Nacho Monreal joined Arsenal, Salomon Rondon signed for Ruben Kazan, and Ruud van Nistelrooy retired. In total, Málaga raked in almost £40 million in players' sales, and not a single penny of that was reinvested in the club's playing squad for a couple of reasons. More worrying still, Cazorla and Van Nistelrooy, before their departures, had made official complaints about unpaid wages.
What the hell? Unpaid? Oh my God, this sounds like the beginning of the end here.
Before their departures, had made official complaints about unpaid wages. It was all a little bit strange coming from a club that was purportedly owned by one of the wealthiest men in the Middle East.
Yeah.
The first chink in the armour appeared when Osasuna filed a complaint about Málaga not having paid an instalment of Nacho Monreal's transfer fee. The investigation concluded with Málaga being put under a 1-year transfer ban, meaning they could only sign players on frees and loan deals the following season.
Oh, wow.
That was the
Oh, I didn't realize that. I know what the transfers are and the transfer windows, but I didn't realize that they obviously do have some rules around it. But I didn't know that was the penalty for violate some of those rules.
They could only sign players on frees and loan deals the following season. That was the least of their problems in some respects, however. With rumours aplenty that Manuel Pellegrini was on the verge of quitting, debts were rapidly being racked up, and that Sheikh Abdullah had already put Malaga up for sale. Malaga looked to be even more rudderless when Jose Carlos Perez, who oversaw the day-to-day management of the club, died, and the general manager, Fernando Hierro, who led the tributes to Perez, resigned shortly afterwards, only 10 months into the job. Clearly, something wasn't quite right. In fact, it is a wonder, given everything that happened at the club that season and towards the end of the previous season, that Malaga still managed to finish 6th in the 2012-13 campaign, in addition to reaching the quarterfinals of the Champions League. In their first taste of elite-level European football, Malaga went unbeaten to finish top of their group before beating Porto in the round of 16. In the quarterfinals, Malaga met Borussia Dortmund, who had won their second successive Bundesliga title the previous season under Jurgen Klopp and would go on to reach the final of that year's Champions League. In the 90th minute of the second leg, which was a fantastic game to watch, Malaga led 2-1 at the Westfalenstadion, having drawn the first leg 0-0.
Oh, Lewandowski, of course, scored. And I have had someone in, I think he sent an email with a request saying that he remembers that game. If you just say Malaga to someone from that team, they'll have some kind of feelings about it.
Even a 91st minute equaliser by Marco Reus couldn't save Dortmund, by virtue of the away goals rule. But in the 93rd minute, Felipe Santana enshrined himself in Borussia Dortmund folklore by scoring the winner. Four Dortmund players had been standing in an offside position when Robert Lewandowski crossed the ball, but somehow the officials missed it. On the anniversary of that game, every year, Sheikh Abdullah posts to his social media complaining about the injustice inflicted on Malaga and how there ought to be a UEFA investigation. It is a source of much embarrassment to Malaga fans all these years even if they raged about the decision at the time, that their owner still bangs on about it whilst the club is mired in Spanish football's second division. The following summer, after an extraordinary season both on and off the pitch, Manuel Pellegrini did indeed depart, replaced by another former Real Madrid boss in the form of Bernd Schuster. Pellegrini was followed out of the exit door by the likes of Jeremy Toulon, Joaquin, Javier Saviola, Julio Baptista, and Martin Di Michaelis. Meanwhile, Malaga's most notable departure was Isco, who joined Real Madrid for €27 million, a record sale for the Andalusian outfit. Malaga's transfer ban came to an end, but despite now having made over £70 million in player sales in the space of just 2 seasons, without having spent anything the previous term, less than £5 million, went back into the club's playing squad. That was partly due to Malaga being hit with a hefty €300,000 fine and a ban from all European competitions by...
Yeah, but 70 million, 300,000. I mean, that's not, if I heard that right, and they made 70 million. I think that's what I heard him say. Let me see.
But despite now having made over £70 million in player sales in the space of just 2...
Yeah, 70 million in player sales. So that's because of the transfer. They made 70 million.
But despite now having made over £70 million in player sales in the space of just 2 seasons, without having spent anything the previous term, less than £5 million, went back into the club's playing squad.
Wow.
That was partly due to
You make 70 million and you only put 5 million back into the club.
Malaga being hit with a hefty €300,000 fine and a ban from all European competitions by UEFA, despite the fact that the club had reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League the previous season.
Why were they banned? That's interesting.
Despite the fact that the club had reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League the previous season and had qualified for the Europa League via a 6th-place finish in La Liga. UEFA had introduced financial fair play, or FFP regulations, at the beginning of the 2011-12 season, but already they were being accused of having created weak regulations, of being ineffective in enforcing them, or indeed both. It has been suggested that perhaps some of those allegations led to UEFA throwing the book at Malaga, who could be deemed as an easier target than some of European football's superclubs. Needless to say, Sheikh Abdullah was not particularly impressed, though he was even less impressed with La Liga. After new wealth redistribution rules were shelved, which would have benefited Malaga, Abdullah promised to turn the taps off, so to speak. Abdullah felt that La Liga's wealth distribution was far too favourable to Real Madrid and Barcelona, and that it prevented teams like Malaga from being able to compete whilst remaining within the allowed financial framework. Which you could argue is fair enough, but just so we're clear here, this is Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser bin Abdullah Al Ahmed Al Thani that we're talking about here, a member of Qatar's 6,000-strong royal family who are worth an estimated £250 billion plus and rule over an oil-rich kingdom which is built off the backs of impoverished migrant workers whose conditions often aren't that far removed from those of medieval serfs, slaves, or indentured servants, arguing in favour of fairer wealth distribution. You know, just so that we're absolutely clear.
Yeah, imagine that.
Of fairer wealth distribution. You know, just so that we're absolutely clear. I think that we are all hypocrites to a certain extent, or at least I know I am, but I mean, come on. In the words of Roy Hodgson, let's not take the piss here. So Abdullah turned off the taps and stopped pumping money into Malaga. Except, allegations soon emerged that the taps hadn't actually been turned off, they were just pouring money in a different direction.
Oh my God, this guy. Just spend the money.
The taps hadn't actually been turned off, they were just pouring money in a different direction. And out of Malaga and into Abdullah and his family's pockets rather than into the club and out of his own. To this day, Abdullah and his sons are accused of owing the club more than €6 million, an amount which could arrest a great deal of the club's current financial woes. To be clear, in terms of the questions that I outlined in the intro.
That's super confusing. You're worth billions, 250 billion your family is, and you're like sticking it to your club for 6 million? I don't know, something sounds weird.
Club's current financial woes. To be clear, in terms of the questions that I outlined in the introduction, Abdullah is a bona fide Qatari royal. He is the great-grandson of Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Thani, who ruled Qatar from 1898 to 1905. However, Abdullah is not that close to the current emir, Sheikh Tamim. Like most royals, Qatari royals receive a monthly or yearly stipend, with the most senior royals raking in the highest amount. As you get closer to the top, however, this stipend is effectively irrelevant since money becomes no object and the emir and those closest to him essentially have unlimited resources and access to whatever they desire. Qatar's former emir, Hamid bin Khalifa Al Thani, who stepped down to make way for Sheikh Tamim, is Abdullah's cousin once removed, which means that Sheikh Abdullah most likely isn't one of Qatar's wealthiest royals through his monarchal stipend alone. However, Abdullah is widely believed to have enjoyed success in business. He has been a director of Doha Bank since 1996, and whilst his finances are extremely opaque, most estimates do give him billionaire status. Whatever his real net worth, it seems extremely unlikely that Abdullah doesn't have adequate resources to pay Malaga's debts or fund the club with consummate ease. Yet, he has let them rot for the past 8 or 9 years.
Damn, 8 or 9 years? Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yet, he has let them rot for the past 8 or 9 years. There was another reason why Abdullah lost interest, in addition to his gripes with both La Liga and UEFA. Abdullah's degree of interest in football is another unknown, but what is certain is that his interest in the Costa del Sol certainly wasn't limited to football alone. He had the intention of building a soccer city at Malaga, featuring a €12 million academy setup, but also shops, restaurants, and a hotel. Even more widely known was his project to regenerate Puerto de la Bajadia. The most exclusive location in the Costa del Sol is Puerto Banús, around 15 minutes from Marbella, which is home to one of the most expensive marinas to dock your yacht anywhere in the world. Abdullah had plans to transform Puerto de la Bajadia, a marina which is actually in Marbella, into an equally sought-after location. Here are some of the images of said project taken from the Puerto Altani website. Abdullah won a contract to carry out his works, but in 2014, following several complaints made against him, his contract was stripped from him, a decision which he appealed against. In 2018, it was confirmed that his appeal had officially been rejected. If you thought that was bad, in 2020, all of Sheikh Abdullah's family's assets in Spain were seized on account of the family having failed to come to an agreement with the court over bail, which had been set at 8.5 million euros. To be clear, Sheikh Abdullah technically still owns Malaga. Sort of. After Malaga amassed huge debts in order to qualify for the Champions League, spending over £50 million in a single season and investing a fortune in wages, Sheikh Abdullah founded a new holding company that was 51% owned by him and 49% owned by the hotel group Blue Bay, effectively handing over half of the club to the group. Abdullah later reneged on this deal after it had been signed and claimed that
Dang, this Abdullah dude is pretty dirty. I don't know another word to say. It's kind of shady.
Abdullah later reneged on this deal after it had been signed and claimed that Blue Bay had no control over the team's affairs. But Blue Bay took him to court and finally won in 2019, forcing Abdullah to accept the terms that Blue Bay had agreed to almost 6 years ago. Again, I think it is worth noting some of the inevitable pitfalls of having a monarch, and particularly a ruling monarch. Since rule and royalty is determined solely by birth and nothing else, it is inevitable that some royals will be smart and capable, some will be stupid and useless, and some will be bland and mediocre. A great many will have very few life skills due to their upbringing, and almost all will have an overwhelming sense of entitlement and a total aversion, if not disbelief, at not getting their own way. I would be reluctant to comment on Sheikh Abdullah's intelligence, but he certainly seems to be someone who takes great offence at not getting his own way. And at the first sign of that at Malaga, he threw his toys out of the pram. Malaga survived for a surprisingly long time in La Liga, despite being such a basket case off the pitch, through some smart loan deals, free transfers, and a committed playing and non-playing staff who stuck to their guns even when they weren't getting paid. Ultimately, though, it was only a matter of time. And in the 2017-18 season, Malaga were marooned at the foot of the La Liga table. It is quite possible that, had one or two things gone differently, Sheikh Abdullah might have acted very differently as well. And Malaga might...
I don't think so. Sounds like that's who this guy is.
Sheikh Abdullah might have acted very differently as well. And Malaga might be in a vastly different predicament now. What if La Liga had implemented their TV money distribution when planned, and as planned? What if UEFA had been a bit more lenient? What if Abdullah had been allowed to continue with his plans in Marbella? What if Borussia Dortmund's offside goal had been disallowed and Malaga had progressed to a Champions League semi-final during only Abdullah's second season owning the club? There are a great many what-ifs, but ultimately, football will always have its pitfalls, and Sheikh Abdullah is, above all else, a great reminder of the dangers associated with having an owner who cares very little about the club he, she, or they happen to own. When the going got even a little bit tough, Sheikh Abdullah cried about it on Instagram, took his football back to Doha, and left Malaga to rot while still owing the club at least 6 million euros. Abdullah has been forced to abdicate his role as Malaga's president, replaced by Jose Maria Munez, a chairperson and administrator who was brought in to review Malaga's finances and get the club back on the straight and narrow. Something that is easier said than done, with the shadow of an absent Abdullah still looming large over the club. Especially since the message coming from Munez, loud and clear, is that the club still isn't for sale. In the end, Sheikh Abdullah's project at Malaga has been less Sheikh Mansour at Manchester City and more Assem Alam at Hull City. A tale of burnt bridges, missed opportunities, tantrums, player sales, and dereliction. If pettiness, like cubism, were an art form, Sheikh Abdullah and SM Alam would be pioneers on par with Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque.
Wow.
So that is it for today's video.
Man, that is crazy. I don't think I'm going to be choosing Malaga as a team, because it sounds like there's like no light at the end of the tunnel. They're going to be messed up for a while because they don't even know if the Sheikh is still over the club or what is happening. Man, that's sad. That's what happens. Like he said, when you get an investor or someone who really doesn't give a crap about football, or at least the team that they're purchasing. Oh, wow. That's crazy. Thanks for recommending that. Let's take a look and see what the people got to say on this one here, because I'd be curious here. Let's see. Get out of here. All right, let's see here. Okay. I got to read this one here. It's kind of long, but I'm going to read it. I went on the stadium tour of Malaga's stadium back in like 2012, and when they were in La Liga and had players like Van Nistelrooy and Caballero, they were so genuinely surprised to have some tourists come to their stadium for a tour. And we got a private tour of the stadium with all access and free gifts and signed postcards at the end. Awesome club. It used to be. As a Malaga fan, you're a legend for making this. We have become an absolute laughingstock, and I'll be honest, even I didn't know exactly what was going on. This video has helped me understand the situation better. It's a mess. Since Simeon, I guess that's how you say that, has been at Atletico Madrid for over 10 years now, you should do a video on his best 7 signings. All right. Okay. Wow. Man, that was a really good video. I had no idea what was going on over at Malaga. They always seem to have passionate fans and everything, but I guess so does every club. So, but that was a great video. Thanks for making that. HITC 7s, as always, a great video. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.